Hi, Professor Tajuddin. How are you?
Fine, thank you for inviting me. As I said to a few podcasters, I like to be seen with young people now because my demography seems to be old people.
But you're always around young people as well, right? Given your profession.
Yes, I am, but that is in the university. They only want to know when the assignment is due and
They want to bodek you.
whether they got all these A's and things like that. So that's why I spend most of my time outside of the university because that's how I am able to learn when I speak and people ask questions and they ask a lot of questions outside of the university, the public. That is how I build up my knowledge and things like that.
So, Professor, I first took notice of you when you did Harith Iskandar's podcast. This was about 2 months ago. After finishing the whole episode, right, I was really impressed at how you simplified certain issues. Racial affairs, which quickly turned into highly sensitive topic for Malaysians in general. But more importantly, it was the message that you sent to Malaysian non-Muslims, which I thought was really important to highlight. Like, with every racial affair that you guys covered, you never failed to shed a light on how Islam is a religion of compassion and it's merciless. It's very much not alike with some of the behaviors that our Malay Muslim politicians have displayed. Professor, do you mind introducing yourself?
Well, I'm my full name is Muhammad Tajuddin bin Muhammad Rasdi. The meaning of Muhammad Tajuddin is Muhammad, the crown of religion. Taj ad-Din is the crown of religion. Doesn't mean I'm the crown of religion. It means Muhammad is the crown of religion. So in the days of old, when you want to name a child, always go to the ustaz. So you name the person Abdul Rahman, the slave of the merciful, and things like that. Not nowadays where you mix names and things like that. So names are very sacred in those days. I was in a scholar St. Mark, Butterworth, and then when my father, who was a policeman, retired, I had to find a different school in Taiping, which I found in SMJK Hua Lian, which
A
is
vernacular school.
it's a Chinese vernacular school, but its medium is half English and half Bahasa Malaysia. So I took the Malaysian Certificate of Education for the last time it was offered. After that, it was Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia throughout.
This was 1970, if
This
you can
was
remember.
1979 that I took the MCE lah. Okay, so jadi I went for a brief period in the lower six at SMJK Hua Lian when then I was offered to go overseas to the United States. Now, my father was a simple policeman. I never really traveled very far, but suddenly I'm flown, more than halfway around the world to University of Wisconsin Green Bay. First 2 years, then University of Wisconsin Milwaukee to pursue architecture as a degree, and we were offered 6 years scholarship by the Public Service Department lah. And there I completed my degree and masters 1984 and came back 1986. And after a stint of during that time was the recession. So supposed to be a government scholar, immediately get a job, but we were not employed, because of the freeze in the employment, and everywhere is send 100 letters to architect firm. Also, you cannot get a job. If you cannot get a job, you don't have any pay, something like that. So then luckily I was able to secure a place at University Technology Malaysia in 1987, about just a year after I came home. And I always wanted to be an academic, and my dream of becoming an academic was realized. And 1992, I got a scholarship from UTM to go to Edinburgh, Scotland for my PhD. And
In philosophy, right?
Yeah, Doctor of Philosophy at University of Edinburgh. And then coming back, 1995, I became associate professor in 1997, quite fast at that time. After that, I became a full professor in what year was it? 1995. And after that, I stayed at UTM until 2015, where I asked for optional retirement, and since 2015 until now, I'm with UCSI University. But I'm also quite recently, last year, appointed by the government of Unity Government to be a board of governors at University Kebangsaan Malaysia. So now, in one sense, I'm at two places lah. One, of course, is the full professor teaching and having that. The other one is just at the very top management level.
Okay, Professor, very detailed, very detailed introduction of yourself. Yeah. So I've gone through some of the writings that you've done. There's obviously a lot, hundreds of them. You've mentioned a few times that in your writings that our society is dying. So what do you mean by that, and how did we get to here over the years? Is that still your current opinion?
Unfortunately, very much so. When we say dying, there are two aspects. How does a community or a humanity dies? Number one, when you refuse to learn anything new. You think that after graduating, whether after school, let's say you learn something like history or religion or something, and then you go to university, you learn things like business or architecture, or then you say, okay, it's done. So no more learning after that, not only in your chosen profession or the things that you already know, but expanding beyond that. So when you have a society that is very comfortable in their tempurung, I call it, the coconut shell, of religion, of tradition, of history, then it's very difficult to meet the challenges of the world with that. And so in one sense you die, because one definition of death is you don't grow. Okay. The other thing is about the idea of trust and dignity. Now, when you begin to think that your own race or your own religion is the only thing that will save you in this world and in the next, and you have no place, and even not just no place, but even consider others as enemies, then it's a case of worse than death. Because at least death, you can't do anything. But if this kind of attitude, you could cause much pain to others as well as to yourself. So it's not just death, but also, I would say, what is worse than death? Something along that line. So the inability to grow intellectually, to understand things in a different way, new things and all that, and the inability to feel, to have the passion. God created us unlimited passion. You can love all or you can hate all. All right. So this one, there's no limit. It's like the cosmos. There's no limit, no end. Okay. I don't see any end in there. Okay. So you can love somebody thousands of miles away. You can love somebody just in your neighborhood or in your. This is limitless. But we do not learn how to harness this, and that is where I say that the society has died.
You have obviously been very vocal when criticizing certain Malay Muslim politicians, right? But for people that would say, why would we have to listen to you? You yourself is not an ustad or a mufti, so why should we listen to anything you say regarding Islam?
In Islam, there is no such thing as priesthood. What is priesthood? Priesthood means a section of people that has been given the authority of religion to pronounce someone is sinful or not sinful and things like that. As far as I understand, when I learned the Islamic Reform Movement, that the responsibility of preserving Islam, expanding Islam, and taking care of Islam so that it can live and survive and even prosper in terms of the community is on each and every individual Muslim. So, if you don't listen to some good arguments from a person like me who uses the Quran as well as the examples of the Prophet, and you choose to only listen to, say, the clerics or the muftis, then you actually don't know the responsibility of your own religion. You see, the Malays have been brought up in what I call cultural Islam. In cultural Islam, you just learn a little bit about Islam and leave everything to the ustaz and to the mufti.
Yep.
But when the Islamic Reform Movement came with Anwar Ibrahim and Habib and then later on Ikram and all that, you will find that many of these professionals have the knowledge of Islam, which is akin to much of the knowledge of the so-called ustaz, except maybe they would know Arabic. But certainly they have both the knowledge of the multidisciplinary aspect of life, of the world, like architecture, engineering, philosophy and all that. But they also have the intellectual knowledge of Islam itself, albeit they may not know Arabic and things like that. The ustaz and mufti, on the other hand, may know the so-called Arabic and all, but they do not possess the multidisciplinary nature of looking at the world, nor do they have the experience of the world in terms of many aspects of it, whether it's economy or social, and they have been given the power to be an authority in the sense of pronouncing someone is wrong or someone is right. So that's where in if you understand Islam, you should listen to someone who is able to look at an issue in first the manner of how the example of the Prophet and the Quran would explain it, but interpreted within the context of what is required in the present world. I give you a simple example of the mosque and the minaret. Now, many people, if you say we should build a mosque without a minaret, people would say, "Oh, this is ridiculous."
Sorry, what is a minaret?
A minaret is a tower that is, you put the loudspeaker there for the azan to, So, but then you don't know that the minaret was part of the tradition of the azan or the call of prayer, which was actually not part of the command of God to pray. So, if you study the history, which I did, study the history in the translated version of English and Bahasa Indonesia and all that, that the azan that is pronounced is not part of prayer. So if you don't pronounce the azan, God will still accept your prayer because God never asked you to pronounce the azan. If you tell that to a Malay, he say you are liberal or you are Sesat, because it has always been that the azan precedes the prayer. Yes, but that doesn't mean that that is what actually happened in the past. So even the ustaz will verify what I said. Okay, so this is where a person like me who possess not only the intellectual knowledge but also the multidisciplinary aspect of life, combining it together. But there are many Muslims who believe that you should only follow one part, which is the traditional part, in order to be safe. So don't try anything new, don't try anything progressive, be safe.
So for me as a non-Muslim, right, I don't hear the word, because I know that you've vocally mentioned also that the word Sesat has been overused and misused as well by a lot of Malay Muslims, right? Could you give me some examples? I'm not familiar.
Okay, the authority or the institutions of JAKIM, Majlis Agama, is a good institution. But first of all, we must understand the institutions are the creations of man.
Yes.
In Islam, it's not the creation of God. In some religion, the institutions itself is sort of given the impression that it is what God wanted. All right, I'm not going to say that is wrong or right, but that's how it feels right. So Islam is not like that. The institutions is clearly of this world. Now, having said that, the institutions are given the political power to actually, order the society in this way or that way. And the institutions then follow a certain kind of Islam. For instance, in Malaysia, it is Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is opposite to Shia. And in the Sunnah wal Jama'ah, there are schools, Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi'i, we follow the Shafi'i one. So in one sense, if somebody were practicing other than what is being accepted, then they would call it
Sesat.
Sesat is a very, very strong word.
Yes.
You could, let's say somebody following Maliki, Hanbali, you cannot call Sesat yet, but they're not going to be happy with it. That's right, like the Shia. But the Shia, you still cannot call them Sesat. The only person you can call Sesat is when they say things like, they are receiving revelation from God, something like that, because revelation stopped with the Prophet and that's it. And most tradition also accept that. But especially in the Malaysia, you cannot say that. That's why all this ayah pin business and all that, in one time, saying that this is the practice because you said so, or denouncing prayer, meaning saying that no need to pray, you just be a good person. That is not good because the Prophet himself prayed.
Yep.
So how can you say that? There are some people who actually say no, it's enough for you to just understand the values and all that. So those are clearly denoted Sesat. Now sadly, any view or interpretations of the Quran in terms of socio-political aspects, like the concert, going to the concert and things like that. If it does not align with the interpretation, because religion is basically interpretation of some people, so then they will use the word, Sesat. And that is very sad, because then you would restrict the thinking about how things can be, into the future with new knowledge, new context, new situation. So only with the permission of the mufti of which state that you are in, then can it be. So I said, that's going to be difficult.
Which state that you're in? That's interesting.
So I said in one, in that way, if I'm supervising a PhD in something Islamic, then you need to have the mufti next to me, is it? So Islam is actually much more, malleable and much more expansive in the terms of thoughts and ideas. But the institutions are the one that see themselves as the guardians of Islam, so that it doesn't become too expensive or too, what they use the word liberal, and things like that, so that they can jaga Islam or safeguard Islam. That's the situation.
So, in your opinion, the institutions shouldn't be the end all be all of who controls or who has authority.
The institutions like the MQA, Malaysian Qualification Agency, that so-called police the universities and colleges, they should not be the power and authority, absolute authority in that sense. They should be the guide, the guide that says, okay, well, if there is an issue, at one particular time, I remember the book Breaking Silence, which was produced by the G25. I think back in, I'm not sure to say.
G25,
G25 is this the group of Malay
right?
Former retired high-ranking officers.
Are they still a group right now?
Sorry?
Are they still a group right now?
Yes, they are still a group. So they produced this book called Breaking Silence, of which the authors are people like Azmi Sharom, Shad Salim Faruqi. All these are so-called experts in law, in constitution, and they talk about Islam. And the book was banned. At that time, Zahid Hamidi was the Home Minister. Why was it banned?
Yeah.
It was banned because Zahid referred the thing to the so-called religious scholars or the Jakim or whatever, and they declared, well, it should be banned because none of them are ustaz. Okay, even though they know what they're talking about with all the evidence and things and things like that. So that is where the problem lies. When you give to somebody who has never been trained in the Constitution, and then to pronounce something on Constitution, and then they use such thing like, well, this person doesn't know Arabic, and this person doesn't have the qualification of going through a religious school. That's it. So the thing that I said about mosque would definitely not be taken rightly, because I'm not an ustad. But my book, actually, my first book was called the Mosque as a Community Center, published by UTM, and it was read by none other than the rector of the International Islamic University, as well as another so-called ustaz, and it was given the go-ahead. It shows that I know what I'm talking about. And even though I don't know Arabic and I never went to a so-called religious school, I never even completed my Islamic education in public school because I stopped at Form 2.
You dropped the subject.
Yes, because I was in SMJK Huat Lian, who didn't have an ustad at that time, but they were going to get an ustad for me. But then I asked my...
There were, if I'm not mistaken, you were one of 3 Malays.
Yeah, one of 3 Malays, 2,000 students, and the other 2 didn't really care. But I told my father I didn't really like the way Islam is being taught in that manner, and I could study better. And he said, okay. So I got the permission of my father, told the teacher. That's why I stopped learning Islam. So one of the points here is that I was never constrained by the so-called traditional thinking, and I studied on my own by reading the reformist book by Abul A'la Maududi. These are, if you tell the reformists like Abi Manikram, they know all these books, who are ulama in their own right.
Can I ask, what was your... because, I mean, unlike most other probably Malay students your age, how come you had a different sort of, a more open mindset of like studying other books as well?
Yeah, you have to attribute that perhaps to God lah. Because, I was quite amazed in the sense that, number one, my father, even though he's a traditional Muslim, but, he's part of the generation of what... Tunku Abdul Rahman, the P. Ramlee, I call it the P. Ramlee generation. They drink alcohol during that time. It's a different Islam. It's a cultural Islam. Okay, so he only became very, very Islamic after he retired. So I was never bred in a very strict Islamic family, and then in school, as I said, I stopped at Form 2. And then when I went to the United States, I began reading on my own, and that's how. And then also I read others because I was truly searching. Now in Malaysia, most Muslim, you don't have to search. If you search, you're sesat lah. Okay, so you're not allowed to search. You're just taught, and that's it.
So can you actually speak more about that? I heard you mention it on Harith's podcast as well. So. Like you mentioned, ustads encourage Malaysian Muslims, like, don't bother reading yourself. Yeah. So if they don't read, then they only read when they are in the session, is it?
No. You're not allowed to read because you are not qualified to understand. This is how it is seen. For instance, in order to understand the Quran, they will say, you need to understand Arabic. You don't understand Arabic, but I found out when I was in the US, hey, there are translations and there are commentaries, and I could actually read, except that I read 3 different Qurans, commentary in order to compare, because I use the academic method. So I could actually understand the Quran. Yeah. But according to the Ustaz of Malaysia, then you cannot understand unless you are, that's why they disallow it. That's number one. Number 2, you cannot take things like, you see one hadith or listen to one person, then that's it. You have to consider many other aspects. What I did in the United States was to find all these books, and I read, and I could list out all the books. It's close to about 100, just to learn about Islam, the Quran, the hadith. And I read the hadith. Nobody reads the hadith or the Prophet Muhammad's saying and actions. One hadith, Bukhari, is 7,000 or 8,000 hadith. This is 9 volumes of book, and then Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi. Nobody reads that much, okay? Even the ustads. But I read the whole thing in translation, the English and the Indonesian translation. So with that much reading, then I'm able to understand, and a lot of my views, the ustads also have the same view, because they read the same thing, but in Arabic, of course. So that's why the ustad says to the student, don't read yourself. You can only learn if you are with the ustad. Now this is the traditional method of all
Yeah.
Because there are no books, you can't print books and all that. You have to write, transcribe and all that. So that's where you need, they call it berguru, so you have to have the guru. If you don't have the guru, then you cannot learn on your own. But this is different in the present time with so many sources of references and things like that. So obviously this ustad learned from somewhere else, and they learned the traditional rote learning of, one way of learning, no question. It's always just one way. So when they pass it on to the student, it's also another one way. And that is how the secret of learning Islam in Malaysia.
So,
Sorry, yeah,
Go
Professor. So, just wanted to touch base on that because you said that the learnings of Islam are obviously a bit old and from like ustazes and all that. But a lot of people, when I talk to like my aunts, parents, grandparents, and all that, they always say that Malay people that you see today is not like how it was before, like in reference to the P. Ramlee generation. And all
I
that.
want to ask about that as well.
Yeah, Brian, if you have anything you want to.
So I've only actually took notice of this when I've seen some of the response from my like the videos I posted, and then people remind that actually a guest that I had, Dr. Lenny Su, 2 weeks ago, she mentioned during the podcast that during her generation, it was very much different. Today, she feels that we are very silo. And she mentioned that even back then, halal and non-halal was not as significant or as strict as it is today. I even saw videos, and this was really crazy. You can still find it on YouTube. I forgot what beer brand, but it was definitely a Malay person that is acting in the commercial. I can't remember, Heineken or Carlsberg or whatever. Yeah. But so for the younger audience, right, who I think they probably wouldn't know what happened actually back then. Like what made a sudden change?
When before the Islamic Reform Movement in the 1970s, okay, the Muslims were mostly what we call cultural Muslims. What is cultural Muslim? As I already explained.
Yes.
You were born Muslim, then you're a Muslim. I mean, that's about it, okay? It took me to the United States to read a book called Towards Understanding Islam, written by an ulama, meaning a cleric, a real full-time cleric, like, what we have Hadi Hawang, most political and also religious, to say that you are not a true Muslim if you only accept Islam culturally. You must understand what it means to be a Muslim, okay? Because this guy is trying to revolutionize the society in terms of putting the idea of social and politics into the Muslim mind, so that it doesn't just become a ritual, a small ritual for dying, for marriage, for all these very specific cases only.
Yeah.
So that was the movement. Now at that time, there were already people who already realized that, but they're not that many, okay, and they're not that popular. So we were in the 1960s trying to modernize Malaysia, and the model that we wanted to be was the Western people. And Tengku Abdul Rahman put it out in the sense that we need to learn to study to be in English, and things like that, or dress like the English. All these things, everything's in English, and you can see the P. Ramlee movie, everything is English. I don't know what they drink, but it is in a bar. I still remember Anak Bapa, one of my favorite movies. So I don't know what they drink, and obviously they wouldn't say, but I don't know whether drinking lemon juice in a bar with a nightclub or something. I mean, it's possible, right?
Yeah.
So we won't say bad things about P. Ramlee, because I love his movies and I respect him very much. And so that was then. And then came the 1970s with this so-called Islamic Reform Movement, and one of those proponents was Anwar Ibrahim. Now, what was the intention then? I believe, now you have to check with Anwar, but I believe what he wanted to do was to take the Muslim away from cultural Islam and also away from the politics of race. Okay, because at the time they were talking about Melayu, that sort of thing. And Anwar wanted the idea of Islam taking over Melayu mind, because then Islam doesn't look at people in terms of race. If you're a good Muslim, whether you are Chinese, Indian, Kadazan, Iban, you are considered good. So he wants to take it away from this race-based perspective. So he initiated this Islamic Reform Movement that saw many people then, young people, professionals, suddenly embracing this idea of religiosity at a very early age. Usually you become religious when you're about to die lah. I mean, after you retire and all that lah. Okay, so then everybody goes to Hajj, don the jubah, and then the beads, prayer beads, that sort of thing. But suddenly, at a very young age of 28, 29, 30, you are already there. Because I saw these people when I was in the United States. I went to the United States, I was 18. And I met these students who came to talk about this Islamic reform and the idea of the real Islam to them.
Malaysians, is it?
Malays, not just Malaysian, Malays, of course. And no Arabs and things like that. They're just Malays. They are very strong, and they were the ones who introduced to me this concept of Islam and society and politics to be one, rather than Islam as a cultural thing. So they gave some references, and they make what's called the usrah, meaning a small group of discussion group. And I learned through that. And at Malaysia, the movement was a bit different. The movement, intellectual in one sense, but then it became the masses movement where people started to wear the tudung. Okay, the girls were wearing the tudung, but not necessarily that they were on the intellectual plane that started the movement. In the United States, there was also another movement called the Islamization of knowledge. That's another separate movement, which is also later on integrated with the socio-political movement that actually started in Egypt or India. These are the two bases of the Islamic socio-political movement. And in the United States, the Islamization of knowledge. What does Islamization of knowledge means? It means all the sciences of physics, anthropology, sociology needs to be looked at from the perspective of Islam in its cosmological understanding, but not by the ustaz. It's by the intellectuals. So the Islamic Reform Movement was led by intellectuals and non-ustaz mainly. And that caused this revolution of way. Now, speed up 30 years, what happened? It was supposed to go towards the idea of making Islam more acceptable and progressive. Yeah. But then Anwar went to prison. Okay, so that cut off the thing. All right, and the Islamic movement became more of a rebel movement. And but the momentum was already there because the schools were being set up, the madrasa and all that. And so the children of the first generation Islamic reformists now come to the workforce, get married, and then they have their children, and they started. Now, in 1970s, 1960s, if you meet 100 Malays who are at the age of below 30, you probably find 5 of them performing the prayers. Okay, only 5 out of 100.
How many wear tudung?
Probably 2 or 3 or something like that. In the 1960s or 70s, hardly anybody. Nobody wears tudung. It's a very strange concept.
They wore.
But now, I mean, 1990s, you got 100 Malays. You got 90 of them will be probably wearing the tudung.
True.
And also probably 80 or 90 will perform the prayer. These are perform the prayer because they are part of the Islamic cultural revolution, we call it. Then, so I think that is supposed to be something which is good, all right? And that's why I followed it. And I was a strong supporter of Parti Islam Malaysia, strong supporter of Hadi Awang, where I learned a lot of the tafsir Al-Quran, meaning the meaning of the Quran. I have many sources. One of them is Hadi Awang when I was in the United States. And Hadi Awang at that time was talking about Islam like what Anwar was talking about, very wide, though not as wide as what Anwar was talking about in terms of what he termed now Madani, civilizational. But he never attacked the non-Muslim. The enemy of Parti Islam Malaysia then was UMNO, and the institution of religion. because of the idea that the institution of religion were the one that is telling people these people are radical and things like that, and they have the authority to say that. So that's why they are the enemy of Parti Islam Malaysia. So PAS was fighting these two enemies, not the Chinese. They had no time for Chinese or Indians. Didn't even configure into their philosophical framework.
Yep.
And that's why I followed him and supported PAS with money, with effort, secretly lah, because I was a government servant, in UTM. Until in 2016 or 2015, they suddenly PAS became friends with UMNO. Najib went to see Hadi Awang when he was in the hospital. I think they struck some kind of deal, and then suddenly PAS saw a different way to power. Before that, it was populist power. Now he wants the elitist power, and suddenly the so-called progressive like Mat Sabu and all these people are being kicked out, and PAS became a full clerical movement, like what Mahathir was warning the people. We didn't trust Mahathir, we didn't like Mahathir. If you are Islamic Reform, Mahathir is an enemy, okay? But Mahathir was right after they kick out all these so-called moderates, and then PAS became a full-fledged cultural Islam, but with political power, and joined with UMNO. Then instead of the supremacy of Melayu or Malay or race, is now the supremacy of Malay Islam, and now the supremacy of Islam. Okay, so that became a mantra to throw, and you can see people, even young people who's probably never prayed also, will get on the bandwagon because the call is very strong, and also the idea of anti-establishment and all that. So that's why Anwar introduced the term Madani, but his term is not being accepted by mainstream Malays, because mainstream Malays, number one, follow the Ustaz who couldn't care 2 cents about Madani. Number two, now Parti Islam Malaysia is beginning to look upon as a alternate to a government, to become an actual government, and if Islam is there, then it'll solve all the problem. That sort of thing, the idea. And also that Anwar and his gang is not really seen as religious. And then one thing that happened that most people don't understand, the first cohort or the second cohort of people who went overseas, who have already made their money and now are retired. These people are mostly the Ramlee Islam when they were in the United States or UK, but now they are the ones going to Hajj, going to the mosque, and trying to have salvation, and they form the largest group of conservatism, and they are the ones again the enemy of the Madani, because Madani requires you to read and to understand others, to accept others. It is to them who is just learning about Islam by the ustaz who's teaching children. I mean, the curriculum is the same. Teaching children and teaching 55, adults, 60-year-olds is the same. So that's how Islam doesn't have all this compassion, understanding, acceptance, everything that the Madani states. It's not in the curriculum, nor is it in the Friday sermon that I have checked, many thousands that I have read.
But is it supposed to be included?
Well, it's supposed to be because you are the Prime Minister, but then I said that in 2018, the power of the cabinet chair is no longer relevant or is no longer as powerful as the power of populism in social media and the power of the mosque. Because more people are going to the mosque. As I said, the retirees, wanting to collect all the points for heaven. They will go to the mosque, prayers, and then listen, which is supposed to be good. But then, what are they getting? They are getting this, I call it kindergarten Islam, meaning this early version of Islam with the rituals and things like that. And so, of course, this ustaz is not going to say, okay, make sure you read this book or that book or this, even in university, so they don't read books. So how else are you going to handle that? And that's where the quagmire that Anwar is in, he is out of his element. If he was the prime minister in when he was supposed to be before he was put in prison,
Yep.
then we might have seen a different Malaysia. But unfortunately, the non-Malays supported Tun Dr. Mahathir. So don't forget that. When you say that this mess is created by Malays, I always remind who supported Tun Dr. Mahathir in 1999 election and the ones after that. Yeah. So we're all in this together, ladies and gentlemen.
Definitely,
Okay,
Professor.
congratulations.
But Professor, I just wanted to touch a bit when you were talking about PAS and the elitist power and all that. In the last elections where Anwar had won, PAS was a component party in PN and all that. But the other parties did not score that much of seats in comparison to PAS. Why do you feel there was such a huge rise? Because I think when the results were out, everyone was shocked as to see how did PAS actually get so many seats and wins and all that. So could you just explain how they...
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Before the election, all we wanted to do was to kill off UMNO.
Yep.
All right. But by 7 o'clock that evening, I was calling my friend. What the hell is happening to UMNO? They're losing too many seats. I just want to beat them, not decimate them. Yeah. Okay? Because if you decimate them, then somebody else is going to take over, and that might be Bersatu. Bersatu is the enemy of the people because of their traitorous act in the Sheraton move. And PAS was getting the benefit from there in two ways. Number one, the idea of the 1MDB thing and the corruption cases that has already been thrown at, and many must understand there were also internal squabbles in UMNO. All right, that people like Ishamuddin, Khairi Jamaluddin, they are bad mouthing their people. So that gave their what was the Malay supposed to do? All right, I mean, vote for DAP. Come on, So they obviously went the other way because of that. All right. So I don't know how to read this. I thought it was divine providence when suddenly Anwar became PM. He was no way he was going to become PM. But then there was also the anti-hopping law that suddenly came into, kalau tidak, as you know, with GPS and the 12 UMNO thing, we are already under either Muhyiddin or Hadi. I would bet it would be Hadi because they have the more number of seats. Why should they be holding to Bersatu? And so the surprising thing, Pematang Pau fell, Penang also fell, like Wan Saiful win. How can Wan Saiful win? Please lah. I mean, he's not really that good a politician. And he used to be the head of ideas, but now he doesn't have any ideas at all, except for talking about race, religion, and all this nonsense about him trying to be bribed and things like that. So I hope he got the disciplinary action that he deserved. So that is actually what happened. But the most incredible thing was the people suspect the hiring of the social media. Yes. The social media influencers. Okay, so the stupidity, I will use the word again, the stupidity of the young people, of which I disagreed when Syed Saddiq put up the idea of Undi 18. I said no. It is going to cause trouble because I know what these people have been learning in school. I know what these people, the first few years in colleges, are being exposed to, and there is no way that they can make a very good decision.
Educated decision.
They cannot. They have not been trained like that. And if you are going to do that, then you need to actually do things like introducing certain things and allowing you won't even allow Lim Kit Siang to come into the campus to give a talk. I mean, forget Lim Kit Siang. Anwar Ibrahim was locked out of the University Melaya, right? The closing of the gate and the switching of the electricity. Please don't forget that. So I just smile when they say, "Oh, UM number 102." I mean, you look at the culture of academia is totally useless. Okay, and I'm in academia, all right, and also Board of Governors of Public University. I will say that it is already dead, all right, and that's why I've been advocating to the people to build our own university online and things like that, so that we could create what I call a parallel education system. So that's what happened with the social media, with the internal rife of UMNO, and that PAS and Bersatu got this benefit from these two. So the power of the social media is completely took everyone by surprise, including myself. I didn't actually see those things because I'm not on TikTok, is it? Yeah, I don't use TikTok.
But do you plan to? Do you plan to be on TikTok or Instagram? Because we know that on YouTube, people love listening to what you have to say. It's just a way of expanding your voice. Yeah.
Yes, I realized that.
You have Ismail to help you out.
Of course. Yeah.
You will reach many people. I can tell you that.
I'm very slow on all this. I'm an old school academic. I've done my writing, I've done my books, I've done this, but then I'm the first academic to actually have a YouTube with 28,000 subscribers in less than a year.
Congratulations!
I asked many of my professor friends who are Malay, look, this, you have to get on the social media to influence the Malays. Yeah. But these people, they don't want to do that. Why? Because they don't want, they don't like, if you are commented by other people, and then they don't like the idea of not talking in a big hall, nice hall with a lot of fancy people, this kind of a ceremonial thing, and they always want to be appointed by this, appointed by that, this kind of thing. So for me, knowledge is knowledge. You have to see the best medium and the best way to explain. That's how I understand knowledge. And in Islam, if you keep knowledge within a certain circle, you will be answerable to God, because He says, well, you're only just talking among yourself in order to, make yourself a better reputation, but not actually doing good to the people and to the community.
Yeah, and also if you were to give a talk in an auditorium, what is the purpose of it? Is also to reach the people, which is the same thing that you're doing if you were to air it on social media, which is to reach the people.
No, not the same with the professors, because they want the ministers to be there.
Yeah.
And I heard there's a public university, when they give this major lecture, the minister is there, but there are no questions.
You're not allowed to ask questions?
You're not allowed to ask questions. Okay? So I said, the only way I learn and have become what you see, the way that I speak, is not just about the readings that I have had. And talking to me is not a way of just reaching to people and expressing my view, but I'm learning when the questions come.
Yeah.
So many questions come, and that's how I begin to look at the answer this way, that way, and things like that. And so this is a very essential part of learning.
Okay. Yeah, Professor, there was actually... you did an article was it this morning? You just wrote that article? Yeah. Very fast. And you recorded it also this morning.
Yes.
So there's a rally that is taking place on Sunday. It's Sunday, and next weekend, I think it's Saturday or Sunday, 29th. Saturday. The rally was hosted and promoted by three influencers, titled Rakyat against Anwar Ibrahim. And then I saw a video on YouTube just now that they were getting persecuted and questioned by some of the officials. So the question would be, isn't it their rights to protest? And what do you think about the whole situation?
When I first heard about this Rakyat lawan Anwar, few things came to my mind. The first thing is that, why is it called Rakyat lawan Anwar? In the past, when you want to have a rally, is Rakyat lawan a certain prosecution, unless you really are a bad leader, not bad leader,
bad person,
a cruel leader, like Dr. Mahathir, who has the Operasi Lalang, and also put Anwar in prison and things like that. So, okay lah, that might be something, but the guy is only 18 months in not 22 years, okay?
Yeah.
Or people like Taib Mahmud and things like that. So, my thought of the Reformasi movement and the Bersih movement and all that, there's always about issues. It's against certain issue.
Yeah.
ketidakadilan or injustice of this, injustice of that, kemiskinan and all this thing, why personal to Anwar? That's so that is the other thing is that when you go against the system, then it's the whole government itself. Not kenapa rakyat lawan kerajaan perpaduan. Okay, it should be the whole thing. Like the people were against the Barisan Nasional at one time, and that is also another way. Instead of mentioning issue, you mention the whole government, because certainly no decision can be made alone. We are not a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Anwar don't have the military and things like that. Mahathir didn't have that.
Yeah.
He only had money. so money talks. And what was that? Najib said, money is cash is king. Okay. So Mahathir countered that, but Mahathir title is king or position is king, GLC is king, that sort of thing. So Mahathir is like that. So you should be rakyat lawan kerajaan perpaduan, which consists of GPS, UMNO, and all these other and DJRS. So all these people, why against one particular? That's one. Number two, who are these people? These influencers? Why are the influencers doing this? And why did they not reach out to NGOs like Bersih?
Yeah.
I don't like Bersih now, okay, because it's under Faisal, who to me is immature, trying to show off. Don't know what he's doing. I'm sorry to be a bit hard, but I think I'm being kind today. So the way that he's handled it, he should be the perfect partner to these people. I mean, haven't they read the paper? He basically gave F to Anwar Ibrahim. Now going to give lower than F to him. All right. So why didn't they reach out to other NGOs? You got ISMA, you got so many others. Why did they take it upon themselves? So that the third thing is that how come they are all Malays? Does it mean that the diesel issue and all the issues that I mentioned affected only Malays? Are there no podcaster who are non-Malays? I think I'm in front of another influencer or podcaster who's not a Malay. So there are many. I keep up with some of the podcasters. When they put up their videos and all that. So why did not they have this wider thing? Why suddenly these three Malays? And finally also, who are these people to talk about injustice and perjuangan? What are their background? I mean, were they NGOs before? Were they fighting? Suddenly out of nowhere, these three people come up and just what I call jual ubat lah. Saying this and saying that and things like that. Now finally you said about the police questioning. As far as I understand the police, is that if you have it in a closed environment like a hall, I don't think that's you need a permit for that, because it is away from the public and the traffic and things like that. It's only when you are outside, like you want to have a kenduri, you have to have all this permission because of the traffic. Is there an issue of traffic?
Yep.
What about the garbage? What about this?
Just citizens around
the
you.
business are there? People going to be hurt in terms of this and all that. And so you need to submit a notice to the police. So if you just announce on social media, hey, we're going to go, and the police has to do their job because you didn't put up their. I don't know whether they put up the application or not. I'm just saying that maybe they did not. And so the police had to go, and now they go say such thing like harassed. It's the police who's just asking you what you are doing, when and all that, and who knows, they probably want to make sure that it happens in a very peaceful manner. That's how it is. So that's where I stand on that.
Okay. So earlier we spoke about Anwar. So let's talk about the current government now. Professor, what are your thoughts on the current government in relations to preserving unity as Malaysians and its efforts to try and elevate it?
And working with individual parties as the ruling government, because that's not been seen in Malaysia before.
Okay. So I think the enemy at the moment, for me, on the one side is the Malays who are being put up a narrative of Islam as this being under threat. But on the other hand, also the bigger enemy, perhaps even than the Perikatan Nasional and people like Akmal Saleh or Hadi Awang, is the non-Malay itself. The government has already put out their idea of perpaduan in terms of the concept of Madani. But Malays are making jokes of it, and the non-Malays are making even better jokes of it. Okay? So, the Malays, for them, it is the ustaz that has the authority, not intellectuals or professionals who can talk about religion like Anwar and the people in Nabi Ikram. But what is the excuse of the non-Malay? They look at it and say, oh, so you want to out-Islamize, so there's more Islam. So more Islam means more problem. If some Islam problem, more Islam is more problem. I wrote in an article, I said, Islam can only beat Islam. All right? There is no other way. Some people say we must go back to the 1970s. I say, forget it. That carriage has gone. All right? It's no longer going to be like that. G25 is from that generation. They cannot talk about Islam because they are from the pre-Islamic Reform Movement. So you need an Islam that is in a wider perspective, and the ones that I have been learning is that. And that is what the term Madani is. And unless and until you understand the difference between Madani Islam, institutional Islam, political Islam, and cultural Islam, then you don't know what you are fighting. And that's where the non-Malays are actually helping the destruction of Malaysia because of their what we call self-inflicted ignorance. They don't want to learn about Islam. For them, why should we learn? We already have the constitution, we should just go back to it. It's not as easy as that. You have this whole group of people who understands Islam in one way, and this person, Anwar Ibrahim, trying to change the Malays to a certain way that is a bit more, a lot more open and accepting. And yet you are the one attacking the Prime Minister, giving him F, and calling him, so many kinds of names. The only savior that you have is in this man. Now, I don't want to come out very strong as if I'm supporting Anwar. I'll just ask the question: if Anwar dies tomorrow, who are you going to want to be the Prime Minister? Would you like?
That's a good question.
So that is so while he's still alive, give him a chance. Read Asian Renaissance, read the Madani, and give it a chance, because the concept of more Islam is not about more Islam. It's a different perspective of Islam that is more intellectual, which is not reaching the Malays, because the Malays are taught in the unintellectual. Malays, the way they learn Islam is through rituals. Ritual first, intellectual last. Okay, ritual first, values sometimes, intellectual no need also can. That's how it is. Not like other religion where you said you didn't understand because you had to learn about this religion before you commit to that religion. Isn't that right? So in Islam, a country where the culture is already set in tradition, that's not the way. The way is tradition. And tradition, if it says, okay, you just follow tradition and then you are free to think. But no, they will not have that, because they are given more and more power. And that becomes a huge issue by itself.
So, Professor, could you summarize a solution? Because I know you're one to, whenever you criticize, you have a prepared solution as well to this.
With regards to the idea of unity, as I said, in many public speeches now, I said we don't have to have unity. Okay, unity, even husband and wife don't never have unity. Okay, you marry 40 years, you don't have unity. What do you mean by unity? Some people have so many different versions of it. For me, what is important is that you honor the other person, what I call accord dignity, able to accept different views, and humble enough to think that your faith or your religion and your understanding of God is not really enough, to actually complete yourself. Now that's a very dangerous thing to say, okay? All right, but that's how it is in academia. In academia, if you say things like, "Oh, I know everything," and then don't go to this so-called professor, useless. Okay, in academia, the higher you go into knowledge, the wider you do not know. So the best professors are the ones who do not know. Okay, if the one professor says, "Yeah, is this only this?" That the useless professor, because he hasn't gone higher enough to see the borders of knowledge. So with that idea, then we in our society, we need to learn for ourselves to accord dignity by understanding the other. So not only that you need to learn your own history and things like that, but you need to learn others and also to appreciate that. And here the problem is where the non-Muslim expect the Malays to change, the Malays expect the non-Muslim to change, nothing gets done. So that's where I put the problem to the people, because we have the ability to change ourselves. We don't have to wait for the government. The days of 1960s, 70s, tunggu kerajaan buat politik, those days are gone. You could literally be on your own with all the social media, with all the internet. You could build what I call a parallel world. Okay, where you are in there, and then you're still in the real world, but you're also in your virtual world, where people have the same opinions as you and value system, and you can sit in the same coffee house without somebody saying, halal haram, that sort of thing. It's something that is doable, and so this is about how we change ourselves. And my message has always been to change ourselves by having the humility that we need to learn more about the other, as well as how we reinterpret the things that we know, like the history that we know, the politics that we know. We need to up a level so that we can get out of the old box of our history and our so-called politics. So I'm putting the blame on the people. Why I'm doing that? Because to change the institution is almost the way that I look at it is virtually impossible. But I have outlined certain blueprint or plan in terms of I said in one article that when Mujahid Rawa was the Minister of Religion, I said you need to train 100 ustaz in places where Islam is in a minority, and these 100 ustaz must do multidisciplinary subjects, so that number one, they feel to be the minority, number two, they are with other people, number three, they see things differently, number four, they have a different discipline. So when they come back, give them the KPI to speak a different kind of Islam, which is the Madani Islam, in terms of all the mosques and the religious classes.
So to your knowledge, right?
But they didn't do it.
Are there actually any, let's say, like working muftis, right, that were trained at other countries or what? Like,
no, none.
Is it because it's mandatory to do your training over here, or?
No, because if you look at the curriculum in, say, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, the curriculum of Islam, it's basically cast from the tradition. And I look at all the subjects, the subjects are just from the tradition. There is no subject like Islam and art, art, how you look at art. Islam and civilization, Islam and the history of other faiths, Islam and the concept of the different divinity or something like that, to show that Islam must survive in a world of diversity, okay? Not to be in this tempurung. So what's happening right now is the curriculum basically puts you in the coconut shell and strengthens it. But actually, you should be putting the curriculum so that you could meet the world in all its form, in all its uncertainty. And uncertainty is the thing that builds your soul and your mind. But in religion, uncertainty is the Sesat and the Shaitan and the devil and all this sort of thing.
Okay. I think this also be interesting for a younger audience. Why was the NEP, the New Economic Policy, put in place in 1971 post May 13? What is it? And how does it play a part in our nation's progress today in achieving unity and inclusivity, as once stated by Tun M in his vision for 2020?
Well, I won't talk about Tun M, but I'll talk about Tun Dr. Ismail.
Sure.
The thing that I know when I read what he said. When the Dasar Ekonomi Baru was, number one, is the Dasar Ekonomi Baru relevant? Well, you're looking at one product. So if you think this product is good, then it was good lah. Okay. If you don't think that I'm good, then I don't know, it may not be good, but I think it's good. So Tun Dr. Ismail said, when they asked, okay, so how long is this going to last? He said that two ways. He said, number one, he said the time, I do not want to say how much time, but I will leave up to the Malays, he said. I will leave it up to the Malays, because he thought that when the Malays are educated and they feel that to have this kind of affirmative action is very embarrassing to them, because that shows that Malays cannot be as good as others.
Yeah.
And he said that it is embarrassing for the Malays to have, and that is the time they will stop it themselves. That's number one. The other thing he said was, it's like having a handicap in golf, he said.
Yes.
So after you have mastered the golf, then what's a game if you are always having handicap? It's no game. So it's no fun. These are the two things actually that he said. I don't play golf, so I cannot relate. But I think many people understand that. So the problem here is that somebody is so comfortable with it. Those when Tun Dr. is educated, they're educated by degree, but they are not educated in the soul as well as the real intellectual. They're just following things. Became the understanding that this is easy for the Malays to get all these special privileges and things like that, and they are the ones who want to prolong it. Okay, but they did not, and so they use the so-called 153 Act, to say that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has the power to all these things, the Malay rights, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. But if you trace back, the Malays of Tun Dr. Ismail, Tunku Abdul Rahman, Tun Abdul Razak is a far superior Malay than the Malays of the present, the likes of Zahid Hamidi, the likes of Hishamuddin, Tun Hussein On, the likes of all these people. These people are trying to milk something that was never meant to be so. And so they justified it by the idea of the special privileges, and now the justification is about religion, that Islam must be at the top, then and only everything will be okay. So this thing is going to continue because of a new narrative of religious justification.
Oh dear. Okay.
Oh yes, you don't know how much trouble we are in. Okay.
No.
But well, whatever it is, the point here is that you need, if you want to be good, everybody will say that in life, the greater the challenges, the better the person becomes. There is no shortcut to being exceptional, great, very good and things like that. There's only hard work of learning and meeting challenges. When I was a professor, I was only 42, 43. That's very young age. Why? Because I said I made more mistakes than anybody. Why? Because I tried more things than others. Other people just wait their turn, but I don't wait. I go and try this. I tried this YouTube. I tried writing in the media, this and that. Even though the university says no, we must write journal. I said no, that's not what knowledge is about how to change society. So that's how I am where I am. And if we are very frightened about these dark times that we are heading, well, it is something that is necessary in order for us to reach a different level
come
of
out better.
understanding. Yeah.
Okay. You're very optimistic, Professor.
No, I'm not optimistic. I'm just using the practical understanding of how all of us who are so-called successful come to be. You see, we are simply too impatient. You know, we are in the digital age where you can download things so fast, Netflix so fast, this kind of thing. So we are so impatient to have this change here yesterday. You want change yesterday. Well, I said after 40 years of marriage, you can't even change your wife. Okay. I always say those who are impatient of change are probably not married or probably never had children.
Okay, which is pretty much the younger people.
Yeah, because you try to change them at long last, all you have to do is just to watch them and be there for them. That's all that you can do. You have to have great patience of that and great understanding of that. And most importantly, acknowledge that they could be better than you. That you don't know everything, that in one day they might be something that either complements you or even be better than you. Like as an academic, the mark of an academic is when the student becomes on par or much greater than the teacher. Okay, but we like to say no. You must never be better than me. Now in politics, that's how it's done. Okay, you cannot be better than me because I want to stay there forever till I die. Okay, so that's different lah.
In Malaysia, we do have an existing monarchy. Do you still think that the monarchy system is relevant today, and should it continue to exist?
That's a necessary question to be asked. It's a dangerous question to answer, but I think I'm in a position to give a response. Now, before the previous Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Sultan Abdullah, was the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, I couldn't care 2 cents about royalty. For simple reason that not that I'm disrespect them, it's just that they are in a different world than us. We are ordinary people. The aid or the help of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong in the choosing of the prime minister and all that, this kind of thing, and then he also correctly acted when the first darurat, emergency was called. He rejected it, but then the second one, obviously, he couldn't reject because for me, the useless. I'll use the word, and okay, not to edit it. The useless civil servant at a high ranking who agreed with the Muhyiddin and Azmin Ali to actually put out the idea that emergency is needed to help the pandemic, which I knew it was under control. With the existing law, you can actually do that. But then he had to agree to the emergency, and then it was proven later they annulled the emergency, meaning that he asked it to be debated, but they never debated it. Okay, so he was playing a very active role, and in terms of the Bendera Putih, he was also there, and the greatest thing that he had done was the asking for the unity government, first with Pakatan Harapan and Muhyiddin, but Muhyiddin arrogantly said no, because he's got all the so-called SDs, but the Agong said no, that is against anti-hopping law, the man knows his stuff, and then appointed Anwar and asked them to work with UMNO and GPS, even though they have called these people up. I mean, that is great. So for me, looking at how politics in this country is like budak-budak punya politik, all right, you need a father figure to actually step in. No one actually wants the royalty to actually interfere in the politics of us. We created it, we must solve it. But there are times like that where the Agong need to play the father figure. Yeah. Okay, fathers are 2 things. Now, when you see your children doing something, I mean, you don't really like it, but then you really need to give them the leeway. But when they cross a certain line, then you need to come in. Okay, so you come in, whether they like it or not, then you have to come in. But that is a rare occasion. Must be not a standard occasion.
Yeah.
Okay, cannot be a standard occasion. Okay, so I now realize the beauty of our system. Before this, I don't really know why we're having all this system. I think there is justification in the historical precedence of the setting up of the royalty in relation to the constitution, but I disagree that more certain executive or administrative power to be given. Now, the other thing that people are always questioning about is this pardon business. For me, it's just it's something human to give a certain power to some authority to have the pardon. Even if your son or your daughter, facing the hangman, and who else do you have to turn to? And so with the case of Najib, for me, they are attacking the Prime Minister left and right when the sole personality is the Agong. How difficult is it to understand? You like it, you don't like it, and you say it's not fair, it's not. I mean, that is fairness or not fairness. If you have a family, a lot of things do not seem fair, especially if you have daughters. Daughters don't really recognize the contribution of fathers until perhaps the father is going to die or something like that. But the father will always stand with the daughters. Okay, and all fathers will stand with their daughters in whatever situation. But for the daughters to understand the father, you are lucky if they actually do that. I don't think so. So that is the situation with the Agong, and I am most thankful for the constitution or what we call the fathers of the nation who drafted the constitution and the Agong. Now I realize that we should stay with what is being framed in the constitution.
Professor, so we've talked a lot about the politics and our people in power. Now here's something in your wheelhouse, academics. But I'm sure it's a topic that you might be maybe kind of bored of already, vernacular schools, right? So the topic has arisen in recent years again. It's now become a hot topic. So the argument that it causes disunity is usually supported by the fact that children are being segregated from a young age in these schools, and also that is the reason why many Malaysians are not fluent in the national language Bahasa Malaysia today. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I have said many times that disunity is not caused by language barrier. It's caused by people who have self-interest, like the Akmal Saleh issue with the stalking. I mean, it's so clear that all you have to do is forgive the guy and let's move on. It was clearly an accident. There was no history of him trying to insult. I mean, do you need a rock to fall on your head?
Until the Agong have to help.
Yeah, so later on the Mufti, after 1 month of thinking, says, well, there was nothing wrong. I mean, come on.
The Perak Mufti, is it?
Yeah, the Perak Mufti. So that is caused by people who have been brought up with the idea that one race is better or deserves something better than the others. Once upon a time, yes, but not in the present or not in perpetuity. The other is the concept of religion, that one religion is right, everybody else is wrong. I mean, that is for children. When you talk to children, it's like that. So for me, disunity is not caused by that. As I said, I did not like to use the word unity now. I said give respect to others. Okay? So with the aspect of vernacular education and the public school system, we need to also think that I have already said that the vernacular school need to show two things. Number one, they need to have one other subject in Bahasa Malaysia. And I think if they can have a history atau sejarah they have a different curriculum for history. They have a bit of more of a world history rather than the Malaysian history, which is
extra subject.
Yeah, which not extra. I mean, the present vernacular school history is different. No, they only have one, but theirs is different than the curriculum in the public.
You're talking about
public school.
private vernacular school or just vernacular
No,
school?
private vernacular school, not the government vernacular school. I thought that's what you meant.
No, a lot of people, but I mean, a lot of people get confused, so it's important to.
No, I think it's
point
better
that out.
to put the question on the table, the private ones, okay, because that's the one that's being attacked by.
But there's,
by the-
I mean, for the general public.
I mean, those people in certain political party or certain Muslim group attacking, they're always attacking the private one because they don't have a problem with the. Because they're following the curriculum.
No, exactly. But
school.
I think it's also in their best interest if they don't. Sometimes they forget to clarify that they mean private vernacular.
Yeah, that's
you
the
know what I
problem.
mean.
Yeah,
Because
no.
I see in the comments, I see how.
I know definitely it's the other one because of the different curriculum. It's not just the separation. Yeah. So for me, the vernacular school, because what for talk about SMJK, they talk English or they talk Bahasa Malaysia. There's nothing there. So the vernacular schools need to have another subject in Bahasa Malaysia because just one single subject is not there. I mean, I talk to a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, they can't speak Bahasa Malaysia. Same thing with the international school curriculum. My daughter is teaching it and having problem because these people don't have friends who are Malays and they don't watch Malay cartoons like Upin Ipin, this sort of thing lah. Okay, so we in a terrible state. It's not about unity or disunity. You are in Malaysia and the national language is Bahasa Malaysia. You need to honor that. And you do not just learn it in a mechanical way. You also need to know some of the budaya and the adab and the culture. You need to have that. The Malays have to say masuk kandang kambing menguak, masuk kandang kambing mengembek, masuk kandang kerbau menguak. Or when in Rome, sort of thing lah. Okay, so in Japan you have to learn the Japanese language. In Korea you have to learn Korean, and not only that, the culture and things like that. So you are in the sea of Islam and Malay. So I think a certain knowledge of Islam, even though you are not Muslim, needs to be there, but not very much lah. Okay, so in the public school system pula, the curriculum of Islam is a bit skewed. Now people are complaining that there's so much pengajian Islam and then very few mathematics and science and all that. You complain like that, then you make enemies between Muslim. Let them have the hours, but ask about the content. And I've seen the content, and we should actually pay attention to the content in which Mazli Malik at one time when he was minister said we must teach more empathy. And I've looked at the books from Standard 1 to Form 5. It doesn't have pictures of churches, it doesn't have pictures of dogs, it doesn't have pictures of women without tudung. I mean, this is total isolation. I mean, who in the world wrote those books? Of course lah, Ustaz. All right, let me write the book. I can write the book, or sit in the jawatan kuasa or the committee that has Ustaz, but also people who understands about the world better than the Ustad. So here is a situation of number one has nothing to do with language, but the way you learn history, the narrative of history saying one group is at fault, another group is the hero, that sort of thing is useless. In history, I said that you must learn everybody is at fault in May 13. Okay, and everybody had done their job in building Malaysia. That's what the history should say. But you have a different kind of history being taught, and then the idea of teaching morals and religion needs again to be revamped in order to accept the idea of diversity. Accept, not tolerate. Now, how do you do that? Of course, the ustaz cannot do it. Then you have to have some person with a doctoral in philosophy about comparative religion to actually draft the thing.
Yourself.
Yeah, so that's how I think we should move forward. Okay, then perhaps the foundation then can be laid then.
Okay. Professor. A common argument whenever Bumi privileges are discussed is this is Tanah Melayu and non-Bumis are the Pendatang. Are we actually Pendatang, and if so, what difference should that make in our rights as a Malaysian?
Okay, I'm going to say something that I have never said before in any writing or podcast, okay, which is something that the Malays need to think very seriously when you use the word pendatang. And I'm going to use Islam because Islam is what the Malays hold higher than Malaysia and even higher than Melayu. What is the example? Now, in the practice of Islam by the Prophet Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad slowly eliminated the concept of slavery. Okay, slavery in the Arab culture. Right? Now, before the Prophet received the revelation, if you were a woman slave, okay, then if you own the woman, then you can have sexual relations with her because she is your property. The wife that you marry is a different one. Okay, so your inheritance will go to your wife, not to the woman slave that you have sexual relation. Now, when that slave woman give birth to a child, the child is still a slave and has no right to the property whatsoever. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet said, when a child is born from the slave of which you have already mixed, the child then has the same status as your child of the wife that you have. So same thing happened when you go out to war. You have a wife here, but then you go out to war 3 years only, then you'll come back. So you marry, or what they call the properties or the war booty, which includes also the women. Oh yes. That is how, I mean, life. Other people just rape and kill. Islam won't allow it. You have to take care. You have to take care. And of course, these people cannot be the same as your wife that you left. All right, but the children or the born from that cannot be considered a slave anymore. They have a right upon property. So same thing with the so-called pendatang. When this so-called pendatang, in one sense, coming from all over China and India and all that, okay, they are pendatang. But then, when they have the children, you cannot call them pendatang. The Prophet never called the slave, the children of the slaves as different. So if you are going to follow the Prophet's example, then you should never call the children of the immigrant or the pendatang as pendatang. This is insulting. Okay, politically also that is not right. I mean, you already served this country. You were born, darah tumpahnya darahku, and then you fought for this country, right? Everybody like the Kampung Cina has sacrificed, even though some people say this is not heritage. No, that is heritage of Malaya. Okay, and so that is something that we need to say. And I think no one has used the example of the Prophet that I said. No one has said that.
Definitely never heard that
Definitely.
before.
So if your video comes out, I'm not sure how people are going to take, but that is a fact.
Yeah, I know. This would be definitely be a
very clear. Okay, so I'm saying that you should look at how the Prophet had eliminated slavery, and this is how I think we should no longer consider this idea of pendatang. That is number one. Number two, I was told by my parents that my family members are from Patani. I mean, this is what, less than 200 years ago.
That's Thailand, is it?
Yeah,
is it Thailand?
Patani in Thailand. Once upon a time. Okay. They wanna. So number two, my wife is from Minang.
Minang, Indonesia.
Minang, yeah. I think Najib is Bugis, isn't it? Yeah. So you hit anybody, they're from somewhere.
They're all pendatang.
Okay, so we are all pendatang. Similarly with the United States, full of pendatang.
Yeah.
Okay, they're from Norway, Sweden, Germany, and all that. That's the second thing. The third thing is that if you watch a video, I watched this fascinating video of in 10 minutes it shows 40,000 years of Malay Peninsula and the kingdoms.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's in 10 minutes it shows the changes and all that, and you can see that that a lot of this Kelantan and what we know Perak, they are the Lanka Suka, part of the Thailand Empire,
of
and then we are also part of the Srivijaya, the Majapahit, and all this. These are the mix. So who is the Pendatang? That's number 3. Number 4, there is this guy who's known as the Perak man, who's 10,000 years old, somewhere in the cave. Which cave was it?
Can't remember.
It's definitely in Perak lah. It's the Perak man.
Perak man.
Do you want to ask him whether he's a Muslim or a Malay or not? Why didn't you go and ask him?
Because it's important, right?
Yeah. So who was the first settlers then? The Orang Asli. And this. So if you establishes the fact that somebody else was here before you, then you can see that. There also number 6, the idea of Malay. Who's Malay? Malay only existed, I think 300-400. The term itself, and then it was constitutionalized by saying Malay is Islam, must be Islam. And now I heard that my Tun Wan Junaidi, who is the the young Dipertua Sarawak. A lot of these Malays are from Iban, and when they became Muslim, they masuk Melayu. The term masuk Melayu. So they became Malay, but they speak a different language than what we speak of. So here is the definition of race created by people. Okay, I said that in order to solve all this nonsense about racial supremacy, we should do away with saying that you are of Malay race, Indian race, but you should be a B negative race or A race according to your blood type, because that is more logical. You come from India, but your blood type is the same as mine. We can be friends because I'm going to depend on your blood.
Definitely.
Okay, so it's a creation, a construct created by some people who has a certain agenda. All right, and that's how, as an academic, I understand all knowledge, interpretations and constructs built for a certain purpose. And the task of the academic is to go deep beneath that, deconstruct it, then look at the problem that we are facing now and reconstruct it in another way. But if you have a professor who keep hogging on the construct that's created by the past and not wanting to actually deconstruct it, then that's a lousy professor lah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, the Pendatang argument is usually supported by, it's like sort of a dead argument, which is, this is Tanah Melayu, this is Malaysia, Malay, so it's kind of a very dead argument.
That's accidental. I mean, we could have called something else when we joined Sarawak as a nation, Sabah as another nation, and these two. And I wrote there and said there's something wrong with our flag, okay? Because our flag is all the stripes are supposed to be the so-called states, 13 states, when in fact Sabah and Sarawak are not. They are nations in their own right, partner nation. Okay, so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the stars are also 13 of them, I think.
Yeah.
So everyone is the same. Cannot be the same. So you need to have the spike, 2 spikes different, because they are or 3 spikes. The Semenanjung, Semenanjung no. So Sabah, Sarawak, Perak, all this Kelantan is the same, but Sabah and Sarawak will have to be different, or their stripes have to be a bit fatter lah, something like that. So you need to change the flag.
Right. Would you say Johor was a partnering country?
I don't know the history of it. There's something written in the by somebody. I don't know enough about Johor's history. There are 2 sides to the story. One says no, but the TMJ say yes. But then who's going to argue with him? So might as well don't say it lah. If you cannot argue in the academic, then don't present lah. Okay, but apparently there are lectures given without question. So very strange. All right.
Okay, Professor, last two questions. I think you've been talking very long. Oh, just curious, right? Have you ever been like offered to do a debate?
Sorry?
Have you ever been offered to do a debate or anyone challenged you before?
No.
No. Something that you would be interested in?
No, they always say behind my back.
Yeah.
You know, they love to write things. What do you know? You're just a professor of architecture. Come lah.
You'll be open to a debate.
Depend on the topic lah. I mean, if it's economy, forget it lah. I'm not. I wouldn't know a thing about it. But if religion, it's education, I would not like to call it a debate. This is a wrong concept to use. We say a discourse, a discourse or a conversation, so that you have a different perspective of things. Debate ensues the idea of somebody must be right and somebody must be wrong. You know, or somebody must win, somebody must lose. Okay, I don't agree with the idea of competition in getting knowledge, or you know, in any school system, you get number 1, number 2. You know, in ranking this. You know, I think this is a silly way. This is how you train slaves. The best slaves do certain way. We are not slaves. You know, going into knowledge, your experience in life, and the books that you read, the reflection that you had, the engagement that you had, all will determine. So if you are somebody else who doesn't do those things, then that is your knowledge in that sense. So it's a conversation. Okay, it's not the idea of somebody winning or somebody losing. That's terrible.
Yeah. Okay. So based on my observation, right, whenever liberalism is talked about, it's instantly rejected and looked down upon by many Malaysian Muslims. But I do understand liberalism is a very broad term. Can Muslims and liberalism coexist?
Well, one problem with our situation in this country is the use of words that are understood differently and therefore causes this conflict. Don't use the word lah. Don't use this word. You know, the idea of liberalism, in one sense, is looking at a certain body of knowledge in a different way, which is supposed to be okay in the academic realm. You have to do that. If you're doing PhD, you don't do that, then something's wrong with you. Okay. Now, the idea of liberalism also dictates the idea of questioning everything and then living a life that is free of what is called religion and all this, so that you can come to, maybe at the end of the day, you come back to that religion, you know, but the other day you could also come back with another interpretation, or you could basically reject it altogether. Now, for me, being human, what's wrong with having all that? But here, when you are in front of institution of Islam, they are created in a certain manner. So now, I suspect they are protecting their existence. Because if you allow the thinking, then they are irrelevant. All right? If you want to be relevant, then you have to be given the authority to say, you cannot think like this and you cannot think like that. I mean, for me, I'm not trying to demolish institution. I uphold the institution, okay? I uphold the mufti, but I don't necessarily would agree with him, okay? Because I know that the mufti has different experience in his life, though he has a certain knowledge that I acknowledge to be deep. But I understand understanding as the combination of the two. So if you are lacking in certain experiences, then I reserve the right not to actually agree with you. And in Islam also, who said that I should agree with you all the time? Islam doesn't say that. Okay, Islam doesn't advocate the idea of a one-way relation, meaning you say this, then I will have to submit myself to that. Only with the Prophet Muhammad. Even then, you can still ask him. Because there are many incidences where the Prophet asks. But the problem here is that the idea of creating a narrative that this institution replaces the Prophet, which is not there in Islam, and that's what the Islamic Reform was trying to do.
I think most people also think, right, let's say, I think Muslims or non-Muslims, we have this idea of whatever the Prophet said, you're not allowed to question as well.
I think in other religions pun the same. Kan, where the institutions of Christianity, institutions of Buddhism and all that, some of them are very hard on certain things. I don't want to comment because I don't know much about it, but I do know it's not a Muslim problem by itself. Deepak Chopra once said that the problem of the world of conflict is religion, but it's not about religion, it's the institution of religion. If the institution of religion understands their responsibility of being the guardian of knowledge, but they must also understand, and this is the problem of the appointment of the mufti. If you appoint the mufti who's only in a certain line of education and have no respect of other knowledge and don't understand the idea of spirituality as well as history and knowledge and tradition and all this thing, needs a more dynamic interpretation of mind. Then you can see the statement of the Mufti of Singapore on the Palestinian issue, where he prayed for those who were both for the Israel who had died and also for the Palestinian, and also wanting to forge a better relation. I mean, here in Malaysia, you will be unheard of and taken out. So why is that Mufti saying that? Okay, because he has a different experience, he has a different context, and so no knowledge must be etched in stone. Okay, only the Quran is etched in stone, but anything that humans use the Quran always is an interpretation, and when it is an interpretation, we can debate about it, and we have, but debate in a good sense, not in a bad sense of trying to put the other party to shame or to embarrassment or to ridicule. This is the law or the culture that was laid out by the Prophet, and also I think in universal ideas of discourse.
What I feel personally is that a lot of people in Malaysia, they don't have that mindset where you should be humans first and then only comes religion. That's what I personally feel. What's your opinion on it?
Yes, I agree with you, because I have said that see, this is the problem, where there is no one who's going to create a curriculum of the idea of accepting diversity of thought in religion, because they don't know how. I say you all start with the idea of, look, our blood is red, and we can exchange blood with each other, whether you are Muslim or Christian or Buddhist. It's something God has already created. All right? You start with that. And then the idea of changing organs. Now you have the experiment where the closest heart transplant is the pig. The pig's heart is the closest to the human heart.
Oh, wow.
It's a strange. Yes, it is.
I did not know that.
Yes, there's already been an experiment, and somebody already has a pig's heart, and I'm not sure how.
What? Someone has a pig's heart
Yes,
is living?
Yes, it is the pig's heart, not the chimpanzee's heart. The pig's heart. Okay, according to science. Okay, so that's being human. Then I said that socially, I have my own definition of what I call rukun rakyat, or the Malaysian. I said a Malaysian is supposed to be a person, okay, who is proud of his or her own race, religion, heritage, and culture. But he or she must also view the religion, culture, and race of others as essential for his or her own social, economic, political, and spiritual completeness. Now, you want to tell the Muslim that you need the non-Muslims in order to be complete, you're going to be run out. But the point here is that, how did the Prophet ask the Christian king to help the first immigrant?
Oh, he did that.
He did that. That is in the history. No one can deny that. how is it that his uncle never became a Muslim until he died, was the protector of the Prophet? Without these two, the Prophet would probably have been killed. Okay, because in the days, the tribe is the one that protects you. Okay, so if you kill the Prophet, then the uncle will make war on the tribe. Even though he's not with the Prophet in terms of believing in Islam. But the Prophet had to depend on the Christian king Negus in order to protect. So here is a situation where for me, you need everyone to actually complete you. But the Muslim thing, no, you only need Muslims. And maybe others also say the same thing. You're Christian, you need only Christian.
No, it's true.
No, I think this is ignorance. You don't know the end of everybody. Okay, if you say that, we cannot trust this person, he's a kafir. Well, but you don't know the end of the person. Or you must trust this ulama. You don't know the end of that person. Maybe he becomes greedy with power and hunger. You don't think that's not possible? Yeah. But you have people like Zakir Naik who says, okay, well, you only have a different narrative that is either you are with one group or you are not with the other. Like George Bush says, if you're not with us, then you're with them. This this thing shouldn't be, because this is not humility. Yeah. Humility means you need everyone. I mean, the doctor, the teacher. How will you appreciate all these people? One of the great definitions of heritage that was given to me was by an architect called Haji Da. When I asked him, what is Malaysian architecture? He said, well, you have to start with yourself first. What do you mean? You have to look at the way that the intersection of our life comes together. You are here because of your parent, and your parents are there because of their friends who are of this religion, this race and that race, and they all come together into an intersection of where you now present. So heritage of architecture presents those intersections. If you demolish those heritage of old buildings, then you demolish the reminder that we were intersecting with each other for our growth and prosperity.
I want to read a quote. I think this was really beautiful. I think the last 20-30 minutes, Professor really tried to hammer on this point now. This is a quote from Professor Tajuddin in one of your writings. No man is an island. I believe in this. And it's an idea that comes across in a lesson from the honorable academic and spiritualist Dr. Siddiq Fadzil, who proclaimed that the differences among us are the sum total experience that God gives to us. So, even from the most simplistic point of view, or even if you don't believe in God, I think that's really it makes a lot of sense. And think properly, and if you think through it, I think most of us can resonate with that quote. Okay. We are at the end of the podcast. Professor, do you want to let people know about your books? Resetting Malaysia and Rethinking Malaysia. Where can they find those books?
I think the books mostly dekat Gerak Budaya, the bookshop with Uncle Chong.
Can purchase online as well?
I think, you can purchase online. I think Rethinking Online is already out of print. I don't know whether they're going to print some more. But if you're very interested, I'll just provide you with the PDF. You can get that. You can contact me if you're desperately in need of that. But actually, a lot of my writings are out there in the internet world. All you have to do is search,
free of charge,
and you can get them. In Sinchu Daily, it's open access, right? Free Malaysia Today, but the Star, you need to have a subscription in order to open the news and things like that. For what RM6 or RM5 a month or something, I think.
1 month free trial. I just signed up.
So you can get all of that. Utusan Malaysia is already gone. But Borneo Post you still also can get because it's also open access.
Right. And Professor, you have a YouTube channel as well, right? Where people can
Yes. So my YouTube channel, as Haris say, old school. Just type in Professor Tajuddin and then it comes
Perfect.
out. But I'm trying to have other channels which I'm working on. A channel that looks at 38 values of how to create a successful career for yourself by creating a different self or soul in you. Meaning if you can change yourself in terms of your soul, of how you can look at the world and other people in a better manner, that will eventually make you successful in your career. But most people now just concentrate on career. Okay, but here this one, it goes together. So that is something which I'm trying to experiment on aside from the politics, because as I said, education, we need to do it ourselves.
Yeah, look forward to that channel. Professor Tajuddin, thanks for coming on. And,
thank you for inviting.
No worries. Would love to have you on again, perhaps in the future. Yeah, guys, whoever who's listened up to this point, if you like the episode, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment, thoughts on this episode, what you thought about Professor Tajuddin, if you would like to see him on again. And I will see you in the next episode. Give it up for Professor Tajuddin.
Thank you.
Missing my homies, I'm missing my oldies, my brothers, my cronies. We all went to court, but before only courts that we knew were the ones where we were shooting three, selling Kobe. To a legend, rest in peace to the old me, rest in peace to my brothers, rest in peace to my whole team. The oldest, I'm missing my shawty.